It is 5:45. I'm going to call our meeting to order. We will also at this point adjourn to executive session. City Council of McLendon-Chisholm, Texas reserves the right to convene into executive session at any time during the course of this meeting to discuss any of the matters listed as authorized by Texas Government Code. We will be going back on 2.1. The City of McLendon-Chisholm City Council will recess into executive session as authorized by 55.0712 of the Texas Government Code to consult the attorney to wit conditions of street and roads owned by the Glen Acres subdivision, generally located on the west side of 205 between Pullen Road and FM 550 in the City of McLendon-Chisholm. At 5:45, we will be in executive session. It is 6:18. We are back from executive session. We discussed item 2.1. No action was taken. And at 6:19, we will be in recess until 6:30. It is 6:30. I will pull us out of recess, and we will reconvene tonight's meeting. Before we go into our invocation and pledge, I had some wonderful training down in San Antonio with TML, so the meeting's going to be ran a little bit different tonight, probably more correct, as well as Floyd pointed out something to me. So what's going to happen is the secretary is going to read the agenda item. We'll immediately take a motion at that point, and look for a second, and then we will go into discussion at that time. We won't do discussion, motion, second, discussion. Hopefully that'll help expedite. Also, when we call for the vote, since people are watching, they don't all get to really see. So when I call for a vote, I'll say by a show of hands as well as verbal, all those in favor, aye. So you would aye, and then all those opposed, nay. And then that way the people get to see it who may not be able to hear everything. And it's hopefully just to be quicker, more transparent, and doing things correctly. So thank y'all for that. At this time, Councilmember McLendon, would you lead us in our invocation, sir?
Go ahead, close your eyes. Heavenly Father, we thank you for another beautiful day on this earth. We thank you for allowing us to come together in fellowship and in leadership. May we bring our minds, our hearts, and our souls to all the decisions that we're going to make this evening. May we be loving. May we be open to discussion and different ideas. We ask these things in your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Mayor Pro Tem, you lead us in our pledges? Love that we can always count on Mr. Kippett to tell us the God bless Texas. Thank you, good sir. Rules of decorum, kind of go without saying. I think we're all pretty decent people and we treat each other accordingly. Do we have any citizens' comments tonight? Mark? Absolutely. I follow the same trend as Judge New. If you didn't fill one out and you want to speak before I close it, I will always give opportunity. So, Mr. Kippett.
I apologize to the city secretary. I have been going to the Commissioner's Court for 5 years, 6 years on a very regular basis. And I just want to compliment Mayor McNeil today on his presentation, and also the City Council on your involvement in the dam issue, because I am convinced that without this council and the mayor's leadership, this issue would not be addressed by the Commissioner's Court. And quite clearly, we are on their radar, and they are responsive to us. And so I just, governing is hard. I know being on City Council and mayor's position is hard. And I just want to pass on a thank you from this citizen. Again, having watched this, and I've seen a lot of our city leadership up in front of the Commissioner's Court, and usually it's not a positive experience, but I will definitely say over the last several months, it's been very positive. And you're having a big impact, so thank you.
Thank you. That was very kind. I appreciate that. If there's no other citizens' comments, we will close that and move to consent agenda. Is there any items on consent agenda that anybody here would like to have pulled for discussion?
Yes. The minutes from the last meeting is incorrect.
We will pull the minutes for discussion. Are there any other items? If there are no other items, I will take a motion to approve all consent agenda minus the minutes.
I'll make a motion thereof.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor by show of hands say aye.
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 Show that passes, and we will now discuss the minutes that were pulled for Councilmember McLennan.
It just shows that I did the prayer, I believe, last time, and it has Mr. Brewer is doing the prayer.
Is that from the special meeting?
Yes. No.
From the regular council meeting?
Yeah, regular council.
Okay, I apologize for that.
Okay.
It's okay.
So if we can have those minutes corrected, Mr. Holler, can we go ahead and approve those minutes with that correction being made so that we can just expedite that so we don't have to add that on the next consent? Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to approve this subject to the changes so that we do not have to add that back on the consent if that's good with everybody. So again, I'll take a motion to pass that consent agenda item with the condition of the correction on the pledges. Do I have a motion?
I make such a motion with the changes being recommended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
By show of hands, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that is unanimous. So we will now move into our new procedure where Angela will read the agenda item. We are on items for action now, 9.1.
Public hearing to receive public comment regarding an amendment to Article 14A, the zoning ordinance of the City of McLendon-Chisholm's Code of Ordinance, creating an SF1 single-family 1-acre zoning district.
I'll take a motion. Apologize. There's no motion. We're going to open the public hearing. I love learning. We will open the public hearing now. Is there any comments? Sorry about that, Mark.
That's, no worries. I appreciate the opportunity to serve. Mark Kipp, 31 Fireside. I want to give the council the perspective from planning and zoning on this proposal. That was brought about due to the meeting we had in January. You'll recall the joint meeting in which we discussed ways to improve alignment with the comprehensive plan, which had a 1.0 or an ability to have desired lot sizes of 1 acre in most developments, but we lacked a 1.0 SF 1.0 in zoning, which meant the only way that would be implemented is through a PD. So we all understood that needed to be addressed. I'll compliment city staff, ASA specifically, on how he pursued that, brought forward a draft. Planning and zoning was able to review, provide comment that was modified. We had our public hearing, which did not have any comments rendered, and planning and zoning agreed 100%, complete concurrence with the new proposal that you're looking at tonight. You'll find that it matches or is very closely aligned with our 1.5, SF 1.5. And where that would be applicable, for example, is across the street where we're going to have 1 acre homes. was passed as a PD, despite the fact it's all conformal to 1.0 acreage. So this is now, gives the city additional flexibility for implementation of zoning options for future development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any further discussion?
Agenda item 9.2, discuss and consider an amendment to
Let
the
me close
City of
the, let me close the
McLendon-Chisholm.
hearing real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good. With no other comments, we will close the public hearing at 6:40. Go ahead now.
So I guess I'm learning too. Item 9.2, discuss and consider an amendment to the City of McLendon-Chisholm Code of Ordinance, Chapter 14A, Zoning Ordinance, Section 1 through 4, zoning districts established by creating a single-family SF1 residential district.
Now we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to discuss and consider an amendment to the City of McLendon-Chisholm Code of Ordinances establishing a SF1 zoning district.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any
discussion?
Yeah, I was kind of on the fence on this a little bit. I didn't see the pure necessity of it, even though I've been, an advocate of one home per acre for a long, long time. I mean, prior to getting on city council. However, Mark's, and I thought there was more flexibility at one point in time to have the 1.5 and sustain it, and not corrupt it to some degree with a 1.0 SF. However, I've been swayed a little bit by Mark's comments, and to that degree, I have no problems being an advocate. You can have both of those. It conforms to the comp plan, which I've tried to adhere to over a period of time. And so that being said, I think I will be in favor of this.
Mr. McLendon, do you have any comments on this one, sir? Mr. Brewer?
No, I think it's good to have this option. I think it's incumbent on council and future councils to, when we're talking about plan developments, as sort of, which I'm learning is kind of like we don't have to follow the zoning if we do a plan development type of thing, that certainly within the city limits. To me, the 1 acre is the compromise. And for me, any plan development within the city limits, that's the compromise right there for me. So that's all I got to say.
Mr. Day?
Yeah, so what is the impact policy-wise to the city by adopting an SF 1.0 as opposed to an SF 1.5? How does that alter the procedures for development?
So, Councilmember Day, I think that question can be answered based on the zoning and what we allow for zoning. So I think that I think that we can all agree that there's been an overusage of PDs. And so with that, we have more flexibility to now say what a PD is, because right now a PD is anything under 1.5 acres. And to say across the street, as Chairman Kippett said, that should be an SF 1.0, shouldn't be a PD. Because with the PD, it says that it encourages flexibility and innovative land uses. It's 1 acre zoning. That's not innovative. That's not creative, flexible land uses. It's SF 1.0. So essentially what we're saying is we have a comprehensive plan that says 1 acre per unit, and now we have a 1 acre per unit zoning district that developers need to now follow. So I think that it mirrors the comprehensive plan, it complements the comprehensive plan, and it's a way for us to put into our zoning ordinances a piece of the comprehensive plan to say that you can no longer get around, as Council Member Brewer said, you can no longer get around with the PD. And so I don't think that there's any, I don't think that there's an administrative cost to this, if that's if that was the question.
The question is, generally speaking, is how does it change the way that the city conducts business? So for 1.5 acres has been the compromise, that became the compromise actually when I moved into the city. It used to be 2.5 and it was 5 before that. And so it's gradually been moving down. The impacts to the city are, you and I have had a lot of intellectual conversation, academic conversations back there, about my concerns about the impacts onto the ecology, the life, the culture of the people that live out here. And as we increase density, this is you're increasing density by 33%, and we're saying we're okay with it across the board. I don't know that I'm okay with it. I don't know that we're not having an impact that is deleterious to our way of life and to the way that we're not just conducting business, but just everything about the city. This raises flags for me. I understand the issue with the PD, but the PD is only as strong as the council, and the council could cave on another PD later on underneath an acre. So I don't understand how this gives us any leverage. If anything, I think it takes leverage away from us. We can always say, you got to negotiate with us below an acre and a half. Now we're saying you have to negotiate us below an acre. I'm not persuaded. I mean, it's possible that my colleagues will go ahead and put this through, and I'll accept that. But I'm not persuaded that this is for the betterment of the city. This seems to be something that is going to be preferred by developers or people that just want to come in and get the 1 acre lot and then negotiate from down there. Because they're going to come in and say, you've already negotiated, and I've heard it during negotiations. In fact, they said, well, it used to be 2.5, now it's 1.5, and now it's down to 1. Why can't you give us a half? They're saying it. So I understand. I'm looking at you because you're the guy at the podium, not because I'm saying it to you. I'm actually saying it because you are, as far as I'm concerned, Joe Q. Public, the person that will be hearing this stuff. I'm not persuaded that this is the right way to go at this time. I don't know that it's not going to have an impact on the animals that live here, the people that live here, the culture that lives here, and the ideas that we're going through, the impacts it's going to have on dark skies. All of these other things are not known. And there is a certain point where those impacts become irretrievable. If you want to see blackbirds, you go to Sonoma Verde. If you want to see robins, you come to my neighborhood, right? It's a huge difference, and it's irretrievable. This is land that's been like this since the Pleistocene, and this is a major impact. We need to be aware of what that impact is. So I'm not persuaded that this is the way to go without some type of evidence showing that this is the way to go. I think it makes things bureaucratically easier, but I think the impacts are too severe for the city, and I won't be supporting it. I'm sorry.
Did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
No, I really don't. One of the things that I've seen of late over the past couple of years is the kind of the corrosive element that PDs have so much come into play and that they promote. I've disliked that for a period of time, especially after a couple of the more recent developers having come in and advocated change for the city that most people didn't want, and under the auspices of a PD. So that point, just in general, has disturbed me. I can't discount what Councilmember Day has said. It won't convince me because I'd like to see some hard evidence for that, and for your observations. Perhaps from a standpoint of you observing my neighborhood versus your neighborhood on a starry night, you see more, I don't know, swallows or what have you, but I would like to see a little bit more support on that. I think some of this is based on the availability of sewage or not. I mean, and I remember that it came down from 2.5, I think, to 1.5, and it seemed to be a very subjective decision. And I think most of the developers were pushing for that, and then it went down. But through PDs, they were obviously able to get the 1 acre properties, and those were the smallest that could be supported on septic. So I think the real limitation in the future will be our provision for sewer, and that's really going to be kind of something that halts the density that you're so against, and to some degree I am as well. We just differ a little bit on that, probably about a half acre, you think? So
So just for people who are watching at home and bring everyone understands. So when we have a PD that's worked out, and then those PDs allow different sizes and the lot size and so on because it's a planned development, right? So for anyone who's following, what this does is creates an ordinance which is a little bit more, this is what you have to, if you want to do a PD, we will talk about a PD, but it's going to be a 1 acre minimum versus somebody who comes in with a PD and is like, you know what a great PD we could have with a ½ acre lot, because right now there's kind of like, it can be whatever we want. It's because if that PD gets approved by the council, then that PD is what happens. What this does is protects that 1 acre foundation. Did I explain that at least at my?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. So what this would do would create uniform zoning standards for 1.0 residential districts.
So I also echo Mr. Kippett in thanking you for your hard work, because I've actually attended some P&Z meetings, so now I understand what's going on and why I will never challenge P&Z again. So does anybody else have any more discussion or questions on this? If not, then I will go ahead and take it to a vote. All those in favor by show of hands say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed say nay.
Nay.
That makes me be the tiebreaker, and I will be an aye because I will follow what P&Z is recommending. We will go to 9.3, Angela.
Nine point three, consideration and action on the request of Jared Riggenbach, McLendon-Chisholm Commercial Holdings, Inc., for approval of a preliminary plat that provides for the development of one commercial lot, which at build-out shall be an O'Reilly's Auto Parts store.
I will take a motion on approval for preliminary plat on 9.3.
I'll make a motion for consideration and action on the request from Jared Riggenbach from McLendon-Chisholm Commercial Holdings for approval of preliminary plat that provides for the development of one commercial lot, which at build-out shall be O'Reilly's.
And do I have a second?
Second.
And we will open it up for discussion. We'll go down the line as normal. Councilmember McLendon, sir. Councilmember Brewer.
I think this is a good thing. This is commercial development. What we get out of commercial development is sales tax, which takes away from the necessary raise property taxes, in my view, and that's what we need to be pushing.
Concur. Councilmember Day, sir.
Yeah, I want to thank the staff for being available today. I tried opening this up in my packet earlier today. I couldn't read the maps and stuff, and so I reached out to Asa, and Asa was amazing, pulled these maps out, met with me before the meeting, and answered a lot of the questions I had. I do think these maps should be made available to the public, or are they available to the public? Sorry.
Yes, sir, Councilmember Day. So we do have the full-size copies here in City Hall. So if anybody from the public, from council, P&Z, anybody, if you want to come, all you have to do is come, request them. You can sit down with them.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much for providing that. In terms of the information that I saw on the plat that I found most insightful was the drainage plan and how they're going to alter this entire drainage plan. It's useful to look at and to understand. The one concern that I have, and I've already shared this with Asa, who will go back to the applicant, and with this information is we did a kind of back of the envelope estimate of how 90,000 gallons of water would pour into a culvert at the southwest corner of this thing. How big is the culvert that they're going to build roughly to be able to drain that? Is about 750 gallons per minute, so that's what, 12-inch pipe, something like that, maybe a 10-inch pipe could do this. So we want to know what they're going to do to make sure this drains. This is an area that currently doesn't flood because you have good infiltration, you don't have impermeable surfaces, and so the drainage plan is going to head straight out towards Cattle Barren, your neck of the woods. So you might get a delta developing of silt and stuff coming across the surface if that drainage is not done appropriately. But fortunately, we are in the preliminary stages of this. So, but I just wanted to say thank you for giving me this time today.
Mayor Pro Tem, sir.
Thanks for those insights. I'll be looking forward to seeing all that silt developing over by my entryway. So, and thanks for those kinds of insights. I'm very happy to have you on council because you do have that kind of background that lends towards kind of a deeper insight into some of these developments that I don't have. So I appreciate that. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I know we had this in front of us once before. And in terms of the will serve letter, where do we stand on a will serve letter from RCH? And is it mandatory to have one at the preliminary plat part of this process? And if not, where does that come into play? So I'd like to know a little bit more about that.
Asa.
Yes, sir. So for the preliminary plat, the will serve letter is mandatory, and for the final plat, a complete water service plan is mandatory. We do have the will serve letter from RCH.
We should have RCH here to defend that, because in my mind, when you provide water to, and I'm not against development, I mean, I prefer to have development, but this is a real problem for us when it comes to bringing in new development, and there is a demand for water. When that water is being provided to that developer, it is in essence taking water away from all the other residents to some degree. Now, whether it's 115 gallons in a day or 30,000 gallons in a day, it's still, there's one pie, and there's so many people being provided water, a certain limited volume, and now you're amplifying, and I agree, it's just a minimal amount in this case, but you're sharing that with another individual or another party. And I don't understand the premise behind that. I don't understand the ability for a third party to dictate, because they could have said no, to dictate development within our community. I mean, they're really taking away the authority of local governance, of this representative body, to really determine what should and shouldn't be within the confines of the city under the ordinances of the city. We have an individual entity out there that's independent of city government, making decisions for us, that is impacting all the individuals within the confines of the municipal borders. So it just confounds me that this is allowed to go on.
Do you know when so obviously we don't have final plat yet, but do you have the timeline of when this would break ground, be somewhat open, all just kind of to put out there so everyone hears?
So I know O'Reilly's is really trying to get this project up and moving, so I would say that because we have a representative here, so I don't want to speak for O'Reilly's, but
Sounds good.
yeah, so I will turn it over.
Good evening. I'm Jared Riggenbach. I'm with Baseline Corporation. We're the land surveyor. We're handling the platting on the project. I can say that O'Reilly's been pushing pretty hard wanting to have this store open for the first of the year. That may not be possible, but that's their goal based on the feedback that they've given me.
So if y'all are opening, if your ideal plan is to open first of the year, you have the will serve letter, it's 110 gallons a day is what I was told roughly coming out of an O'Reilly's. Is that correct, or is that a knowledge that you know?
Being that I'm a land surveyor, it's definitely not my expertise, but it sounds pretty reasonable. It's, usually two individual bathrooms and a mop sink. I'm not aware if there's irrigation or not for the landscaping.
Yeah, and I mean, we could always put a condition on that if we need to on this end, to not hold up development, especially on the commercial side. I mean, Councilmember Brewer said it best, at some point, rooftops don't suffice. You have to have the commercial sales tax dollars. Asa, do you have anything that you want to add before we look at any further discussion, or are you good where you're at?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Day.
Yeah, to that end, thank you for being present and representing them. I was looking over these maps, and one of them included it's actually really kind of cool. It's here. Let's see if I've got the right map. Sure enough, stages of construction. And in there, Mr. Mayor, up at the top, it has a stormwater runoff summary, included in a proposed impermeable cover of 0.72 acres. So the remainder is, in theory, going to be an open area where there's going to be some type of landscaping. So 0.28 acres, a little over a quarter acre. And it does, where it says stages of construction, item number 10, placement of final landscaping items on, and sod. So there will be about a quarter acre of landscaping.
Yeah, that's why I was saying if we put the condition on the landscape for the 1 year, as, the goal of RCH is fall of 25, spring of 26. We are still having meetings and trying to get some timelines on that. So I don't want to speak to RCH. I just can only repeat what's been verbalized. Would that be something we could do, Mr. Holla? Like, if a motion's made to, or we amend the motion to approve the preliminary plat, although we are not at the final plat yet, could we say, with the condition of no irrigation usage until X, Y, Z? Is that something we can do, or is that? Okay, which brings me back to that point. If it's administratively correct, and everything is on, then we must, right? It's not. Then I will ask, does anyone want to amend the motion or keep it as is? If there's no amendment, I will call this to a vote. All those in favor by show of hands say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
And there you have it. So this will pass 3-1. The next item up is 9.4. I will be pulling that. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I will be pulling that from the discussion tonight. So that we will move on to, and we'll have that on the next agenda. 9.5.
Item 9.5, staff presentation on revenue projections for the fiscal year 2025, City of McLendon-Chisholm budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just here tonight to give you an update on where we currently are in the budget process, as well as some of the things that are upcoming. As you know, we've got to approve our budget by the end of September. So we received this past week the final projections from Rockwell CAD for property values. So we are at approximately $942 million in the city limits, assessed value. So we should receive the no new revenue and voter approval rate back from CAD within the next 2 weeks. We have to legally publish it within the next 2 weeks. So hopefully we'll get it back sooner than that, but they will have it back in time for us to give that out. So at that point, we'll kind of have an idea on property tax, which obviously has a large driver on our budget, how much we get in property tax. So other streams of revenue, we expect based on previous subdivisions that have been approved by the council, our development, permit, and inspection revenue will probably be up next year. Sewer usage and sewer tap fees, since Sonoma Verde is beginning some new subdivisions, we've already started seeing those things uptick a little bit this month. And then we're also we will start to see revenue come in potentially from impact fees from the study that was just passed. So those are all things, obviously that money will be earmarked specifically for those items. But those are all kind of some of the big revenue items that we kind of are looking at for this next year. The other thing is we are doing an internal review of the city's fees and charges. So there are currently some fees and charges that have gone up over the years, and our fees and charges have not been updated, and in some cases we're actually collecting less than we're paying third-party contractors. So we're looking at that to make sure that we're not, the city's not subsidizing those fees going forward. So we've partnered with ASA with some of the residential and permit type things. The fire department is looking at some of the stuff that they do inspection-wise, and we're reaching out to all of the contractors that we work with to ensure that we understand what their fees will be the next year so that we can make sure that we're in line appropriately for that. Public safety fund is expected to be pretty even next year. ARPA, aka COVID fund, as you guys know, we've got to spend all that money. We've got to earmark it by the end of this year, spend it by the end of next year. We're getting pretty close with some planned things on kind of being done with that, so there won't be any additional revenues coming in there. Let's see. Some of our revenues will go up, but there will be correlating expenses. So our budget this year will be a higher dollar amount. But some of those things are, an example is trash. So we are now collecting revenue from trash, but we have a correlating expense where we're paying CWD, whereas in the past they collected it, just paid us our portion of it, and we didn't see that pass through, if you will. So there'll be a couple things like that where it'll look like we have more revenue, but we have a correlating expense that's kind of taking that revenue back. Let's see. There's been quite a few things requested from staff that they'd like to see next year, whether it be software, personnel, supplies, things like that. We do not anticipate that we're going to have enough funds to accommodate all of those items, but we are looking at what's going to make the most sense for what we're going to need in the next year. And then also making sure that we try to correlate as many of those things with the things that you guys mentioned at the budget workshop that we had on June 8th. So in the next couple weeks, by August 7th, we have to publish our no new revenue and voter approval rates online. And then shortly after that, the initial proposed budget has to be filed in the city secretary's office and posted on our website for everyone's review, including obviously you guys. We'll have a public hearing, 2 public hearings. The first one is August 27th. That was in the consent agenda today to set that public hearing. Then we're also looking at doing another one on September 10th with the final vote to approve the budget and the tax rate on September 24th, which will be the last regularly scheduled meeting before the fiscal year ends. Any questions at all?
Any questions from anyone?
Yeah, and so this will be my first time we're going through one of these cycles. When we look at these types of budgets, do we look at what type of income grant writers would provide, or grants in general? Is that included?
So we are exploring some grant writers that I believe Councilmember McLendon had suggested, as well as there was another one that was brought to our attention that Conrad is in the process of looking into. So as of right now, because we don't have those funds, we don't put them in the budget, we would make an amendment to add those if we were to receive a grant and how we plan to spend those. So we don't want to budget for something hoping that we're going to get it. We want to budget as though we don't have it. We can always amend the budget if we do get those grants.
I mean, so, again, like I said, it's my first time through. So have we historically been doing that, though?
Amendments?
No, grants in general coming in and then doing the amendments. Is that pretty
To
standard?
my knowledge,
that
we
you're
have not
doing?
been doing grants in the city.
So it's, in other words, it's not, okay.
Hence, that's why I advocated for us to get an RFQ on grant writers, because we haven't entertained that. And I think it's to our benefit to pursue this. I think that there's lots and lots of money out there that we don't know about. If you have a professional on staff, or at least a consulting services, or it's much like the Commissioner's Court, and you're familiar with the folks up there. They work with GrantWorks, I believe, and there are a number of companies out there that can help provide, looking for funds would go unused, and we could certainly offer arguments for various grants. We just have to know about them.
Yep, absolutely.
Any more questions for Jeff? Comments? All right, thank you,
you.
sir. Well, we'll bring us to 9.6.
Item 9.6, discuss and consider nominations and appointments to the McLendon-Chisholm Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, so I pulled this on the last agenda because I just wanted to make sure we had everything done correctly. And first up is going to be our P&Z. In your packets, you will see some of the applications that have been submitted under P&Z. With that being said, I would say that they are two regular members on P&Z that are up for a new stay, and they have chose to say they would stay, which would be Guy Odell and Chris Freeze as P&Z commissioners, with an alternate retained of Tom Ertz, which at this point would leave no open seats. U.S. Council will have the opportunity to look at the applicants there, but that is one of the recommendations that we got from P&Z chair as well as commissioners for Guile, Dell, and Chris Freeze and Tom Ertz to remain. And I will open this up for any discussion.
I've watched P&Z on a number of occasions and come to the various meetings, and all these three people I've observed making comments, adding to the discussion, and just adding overall value to P&Z. And so from that standpoint, I would be in favor of retaining all three of them to those positions.
Mr. McLendon, do you have anything, sir? Mr. Brewer? And Mr. Day?
Yeah, so the packet has people also that are not in the recommendation list, and I've reviewed them. They seem, they're interesting candidates as well. Is there a specific reason why we're not turning over these seats? I mean, I'm sure these all seem like the people that are being recommended are fine. I have a couple of questions about this, what's going on. So that would be my one question I'd have with respect to the other applicants that are here, who seem to have considerable experience, have lived in the community for a long period of time, and seem to be pretty passionate. I just kind of want to put that out there as a question that I have. And the other one is the wisdom of having, and maybe this is something that goes to Mr. Hollow. We have a P&Z with 5 members, and remind me, is it 2 alternates, 3 alternates? 3 alternates. 3 alternates. Mr. Dean, we added recently, Barry Packer, and then this is the open space, which has been recommended previously. What is the benefit to the city in having an alternate system as opposed to just simply having 7 commissioners? So, I mean, so to that end, we have people, some fresh blood that is interested, that has applied to get in. We have somebody that is an existing alternate that might come in as being a renewed alternate. I guess, you know, I'm not saying that I mean, it's nothing against the people that are here, but the question is, why aren't we looking at these other ones as possibly as an opportunity to rejuvenate that committee with fresh thoughts and ideas?
Possibility of term limit?
Term limits, if you decide you don't want to have term limits, they don't. Another thing about the term limits, again, one of the biggest problems I run into is simply having enough bodies to put in seats. So if you've got a number of people who are ready, willing, and able, they're really trying to do the job. Quite frankly, I'd be scared to death if we got term limits for certain certificates. Like, you know, people keep coming, they keep coming.
Yeah, you know, speaking of Mr. Kippett, you are here. Would you like to be able to address any of these concerns that Paul may have? I'll give you my observations real quick, if you'll indulge me real quick, Mr. Kippett. I have started coming to the P&Zs. I have not had the pleasure of a BOA meeting because they haven't had the need to have one yet, but I will attend one. One thing I have noticed is, as Mayor Pro Tem said, is they all work well together. They all know exactly what's going on. I've not seen one of them not know what's going on. They work well with ASA. The meetings are ran smooth. I do understand the need to have more people, but when you have a volunteer pool that is showing up and doing everything, I think we owe those that have been serving a little bit of that credit. So, Mr. Kippett, I'll turn it over to you. I apologize if I took some of your time, sir.
No, that's all right. So it's, let me see if I can recapture these in some order. First, term limits. It's not something that's been discussed. Certainly could be implemented. My recommendation, though, would be do that as part of the city charter discussion, because you're going to address the specific role of planning and zoning and any other boards and commissions as part of that process. So that would be, that way because you have to change the ordinance regardless. So it would be, there is a procedural process that would have to take place. That would, in my judgment, that might be a better time to have that discussion if that's desired. In terms of turnover, all of the 3 members that are up for or consideration are in their first term only, right? They've only just recently been appointed, so that was 2 years ago. So it's not, I mean, they're just, takes, as with any position, takes a little time to get your footing and understand everything you're doing. So I'm not opposed to term limits, but I think 1 term might be too quick. Just a thought. But they are all members. I'll remind the council the ordinance that is in place and I'll just look to Mike Hall. If I get this quite wrong, he can correct me, but our existing ordinances, if you have two sitting members, one alternate, if you would choose not to reappoint a primary position, the current alternates would float up into that position, and the new members appointed immediately becomes an alternate by ordinance. That's the way it's structured.
Mark, can I ask a quick question? On the float up,
Yeah.
how do you determine which alternate
Good
floats
question.
up?
That's a really good question because it's based on seniority, but since all of the alternates, so Tom would be he's the one with seniority. That's based on our current ordinance. Again, I inherited it, I didn't write it. But we do follow it. So that's the process. What did I miss? There was another one that came up that you had a question about.
I'm sorry. Those are kind of the complexities that I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
And we have, again, other people that are also interested in, so we have more than enough applicants.
Oh, the number was the other, the 5 versus a larger number. Again, that's by ordinance, that's how our ordinance is written, but could be changed. I mean, it certainly is. 5, I'll remind council that prior, the Planning and Zoning Commission 2 commissions ago, we had missed quorum several times. That was a recurring theme. So there was an intention when Planning and Zoning, the last major turnover, so 2 years ago, was to appoint members. One of the things that was desired was to make sure that they were committed to being there. And one of the process things we use for our alternates, they don't vote, but they get to fully participate in every process. So they're fully engaged. And my intention that way is then if there is a meeting where we have one of the regular members that doesn't, then we float up, float up one of the alternates that's there, and typically all 3 are there. So it's Tom is the guy that typically floats up and then in the new batting order. But they're all fully vetted on all the issues. And again, Asa does a good job of, bringing through all of the various issues and, having a clean discussion, recommendation for council. So, but I think those are the 3 main questions.
I think you got it.
Yeah,
And I just, Councilman Day, I completely understand where you're coming from. You get quality candidates who are volunteering for positions, and yeah, I mean that's always that's a good problem to have, I guess, versus having to go find people. Lots of other, that's a more difficult challenge for us city-wise, but I mean, I think that's a good thing to have, good problem to have, I guess, in my mind.
I think that in retrospect, advocating for term limits, I might withdraw that to some degree simply because you were citing 2 commissions ago, where I sat as a member, I believe, about that time, and we had very few people applying for the positions.
Right. I mean,
And so we're seeing maybe an ebb and a flow sometimes with this, and now we have a plethora of folks applying, which is great to be in that ocean of applicants, but in the past it hasn't been so, and in the future it may go back to being such, to trying to find people to apply. So, yeah, I was basically just trying to test out any kind of theory behind that and seeing if it
and you never know. That's why
value of it.
I'm a strong advocate for filling all the positions all the time, because you never know when somebody moves, situation changes, unable to serve. That has happened. We've had a couple, and then even in the last case, with when you asked P&Z to take on the other role for the CIAC, right, as a collateral function. We needed a very special, per Texas law, we had to have somebody involved in development as part of that committee, which is why Mr. Packer was beneficial. Right, so that committee, everybody, there's no alternates, everybody's voting member, but, dual-hatted. So, thank you. I asked everybody no questions.
You're good, sir.
Thank you.
And that was actually a good point by Mayor Pro Tem just now about the term limits. At the end of the day, the council, you gentlemen, y'all are going to decide how that moves forward. So, in essence, you could be the term limit for somebody automatically. If you already have them in the plethora of volunteers, you could actually term somebody out on your own. Mark did point out that everyone up is only served 2 years, so I don't want to say that they've been just hanging out for a while. But again, council, it's up to you. The recommendation by the chair was to keep it as is. So I will let you guys, if you guys want to keep it the same and go off of the commissioner, the chair of the commissioner for P&Z, I'll entertain that, and we can move on to the next one.
I'll make a motion to retain Chris Freeze and Guile Dale as commissioners on the planning and zoning, and have Tom Hritz as an alternate.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And all those in favor by show of hands, say aye, please.
Aye.
And that is unanimous. And we will go on to 9.7.
Item 9.7, discuss and consider nominations and appointments to the McLendon-Chisholm Board of Adjustment.
So this one's almost a repeat of 9.6, except we will be interjecting Board of Adjustments. And the same thing came here to me through the chair, Bev, and she reached out to her members. So the only thing different here is the names. So Bev Stibbins and Melody Osorio would remain as the regular members.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
We have an exemplary BOA with an unbelievable chairperson. My quick advice is just leave it exactly the way it is.
So if I find out she's making you some sweets, I want to be in on that. The alternate retained, the alternate retained would be James Parnell, I believe. Parnell. And there is one open seat, and the recommendation was for Trudy Wesner to fill that open seat. So that is what BOA has. Again, you have the applicants. Bev is here, so I'm sure she could answer the same questions as Mr. Kippett. And I'll turn this over to you, the council, if y'all have any questions. If not, then I would entertain a motion to accept as stated.
I have a very similar question. I mean, this is much easier because you've got 4 slots and 4 applicants. I mean, this is not terribly difficult. But the same thing about the architecture of how it works. Mr. Parnell, as far as I can tell on his application, never said specifically he wanted to be an alternate. So how do you determine who's an alternate and who's not?
Technically, it's the same thing that Mark explained. The ordinance is for 5 regular members and 3 alternates. If there is an opening in the regular, the alternates move up. We recently had that happen about 2 years ago with David Cross. We lost a regular member, they moved away. David Cross moved up as a senior alternate, and then we filled the alternate positions. The reason we have an opening alternate position is we had a member pass away, and we just never came to you to fill that position at this point. Because we meet so rarely, ASA doesn't need us that often, We are a quasi-judicial group, so we only meet when someone wants to go against one of your ordinances and request a variance.
Thank you, Bev. Do y'all have any more questions for Bev while she's up there? Nope. All right, if there's no other questions, then I will entertain a motion to accept as is.
I'd like to move that we appoint Bev Stibbons and Melody Osorio as regular members of the Board of Adjustments and appoint James Parnell and Trudy Westner as alternates to the Board of Adjustments.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And by show of hands, all those in favor, aye, please.
Aye.
And that is unanimous. We will go on to 9.8.
Item 9.8, discuss and consider action directing staff to evaluate Emergicon, an EMS and fire services billing and collection service for the purpose of negotiating a possible future contract regarding billing and collection for fire services provided by McLendon-Chisholm Fire Department.
I will, we take a motion on this one since it's action? Or are we just going into discussion?
Make a motion to,
Yep.
I'll
Yeah, we'll
just
take
make a
a
motion to consider action directing staff to evaluate Emergicon.
And a second.
And then go into discussion.
Second.
Okay, and discussion.
So, on this agenda item emanated out of a meeting that we had several weeks ago, maybe a month ago, with the fire department. And the fire department at that point in time was discussing expanding their EMS. And so as part of that discussion, they had this particular company come in and talk about their services. I don't know if they had their company come in or not. This was discussed. That's all I remember, is that this was discussed as a company that is a billing and collection service for EMS in general. And there are a number of cities that they serve, and amongst them it would be Lancaster Fire, Sugar Land Fire, Port of Aransas, Mansfield, Mineral Wells, and there are a number of others. And basically what they do is, with EMS, there are a number of services that are provided by EMS during a particular call, and they, EMS, can go through the process of billing insurance companies that are allied with the recipient of that call. And so this is a billing agency that has particular knowledge. It's a lot like a grant writing. This is a specialized field, and I've seen it in dentistry and medicine, where these folks have a particular ability and knowledge base that they can pursue insurance coverage for a specific act. And so I saw, and again, this was proposed under an EMS presentation. Well, we don't have an EMS department at this point. We may in the future. However, they do service fire departments that are independent, have no EMS contingent, and those fire departments are currently billing out to recipients of insurance coverage and collecting some degree of funds for the services provided by the fire department. And I thought, well, we don't have to wait until we get an EMS department to start this process. And so I'd like to push forward on this, and we can put out an RFQ. I'm sure there might be some other like businesses that do billing and collection services for fire. And I think that we can at least bring in some revenues based on applications for insurances that cover whatever the procedures may be. And I'm not knowledgeable about all those procedures that we can apply for insurance, but they're certainly available. And some of the returns are, I mean, almost up to 30% of a return on let's say, a fire call. So that would be significant. If the cost of your fire call, if you broke it down to, and quantitated it, let's say it was $1,000 and you got a $300 returned or refunded to you by going through an insurance billing service, I mean, that just adds to our revenues to some degree, or minimizes the amount of outlay that we have to provide. Somebody else has some other comments on this?
Yeah, can I add a couple things? Because
Yeah.
I was in that meeting
You
as
were in that
well.
meeting.
I believe Councilman Brewer was also. A couple of big points that I took from that meeting were the night before we had that meeting, they had fought a 7-hour fire overnight. And that was a perfect example of a type of thing where basically they log the supplies that they use, and this company goes after the insurance companies to get reimbursed for the supplies that we used, for example. They also only charge if you collect, and it's a set percentage. I believe it was 6%, don't quote me on that. But I believe it was 6 or 8% of what's collected they keep, but if they don't collect anything, there's no cost to the city. So we only pay if they collect funds that we aren't currently collecting. According to the gentleman that was presenting it, there are a lot of funds that fire departments just don't go after because they don't know. And they don't go after the residents necessarily, assuming it's a residential thing. They go to the insurance companies. So it's not directly to the residents who had the fire. It's the insurance companies that already charge in case of this. They're prepared to pay it out because they know they have to if somebody comes to them. So they're already collecting money for this purpose. But they just keep it in most cases because most fire departments never go after it.
Did they happen to say what their success rate is on those things by chance?
I don't remember them saying that specifically, but the way they were talking, it's for the people, the departments that utilize the service, they get a lot of money back from it, a lot of their expenses reimbursed essentially.
And they are not going after residents, we're clear.
That was the question
100%.
that was specifically asked, and they said they only try to collect from insurance companies.
I actually have part of the packet that they provided for us. Now, this is EMS-based. It's not fire-based, but it can give you a sense of the return. So the city of Jacksonville, they got an 8.2% return. City of Deer Park, they got 17.6% return. Goliad EMS, they got an 83.7% return. Now, I think the average was around 30%. But that being said, I mean, that versus no return, it's like grant writing. You don't get a grant, you don't get the $4 million grant if you don't apply for it. And if the person who's writing the grant takes out $60,000, then you missed out on $4 million, help me out with the math, 900,000, 34, whatever thousand. You know, you don't get it unless you apply for it. And it's the same thing here, is you don't get the money unless you apply for it. You don't get the refunds, so to speak, unless you apply for it. So this is a service that provides for the potential to recoup some of the monies that you've spent on any individual fire run in this case.
Are they charging a retainer of any sort, or is it?
No, to my knowledge, there's no retainer. It was based on a percentage of what they collected.
It was, the way it was presented to us, it was 100% based on what they collect.
Yeah.
There was
So,
no cost to us at all
No.
unless they collect.
Yeah, yeah.
And I believe that, I'm trying to think of which captain it was that was presenting it to us. My mind's blank right now. But I believe he said that they had used it in another department he had worked in before. Had used it, and that's why he was aware of this company specifically.
Yeah.
And then obviously they were talking about the EMS as well, but there was nothing that said that we have to have an EMS to do it, that we could start it now with fire. And then if we even ever go the route of EMS, that option's there also.
Right.
So, to that end, it's unfortunate that Chief's not here or one of his lieutenants.
I asked him to be here to help out with the explanation.
He's out of town this week.
He's out of town.
Yeah.
Because it would be really good to know how many eligible events, for example, that they cover, that we could claw back some of this return, and what that would look like.
Well, I think that what we could do is maybe have the representative from the company join us with the next meeting and bring us back on the agenda and have the chief here at the same time, so they can be advocates in part for this. And
They mentioned that they'd be more than willing to come out and
Flesh this out a
present some of
little
the
bit more.
facts to us as well. So I'm sure that they'd be more than happy to do that.
So, with that being the case, Can we just, is it okay for us to table this for the, put this on our next agenda?
I'm not a huge fan of tabling. You are welcome to do that if you like, but I just like, hey, no action.
No action.
Go back on whatever meeting we feel like.
Okay, we'll say no action, and we'll just, staff, if you can make sure that's on our next agenda. And also reach out to Emergicon and make sure Chief is here as well, or at least one of the captains.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So with that, we will go to council member reports and announcements, and we will start with council member McLendon, sir. Do you have anything? Nope. Council member Brewer?
So far, we have 14 folks that are interested in being on the Home Rule Charter Commission, and we still got about another week or so to go. So my expectation is on the 13th, we'll have a vote to take on filling that commission.
Thank you for all the work you've done on that. I very much appreciate it. Mr. Day?
Not a whole lot to report other than we had a quick meeting with Dr. V of Rockwell ISD yesterday, and I thought it was very productive. Had the opportunity to, again, to try to persuade upon him the importance of a school at, hopefully it's Sonoma Verde, but we'll see where they want to put it. And we're trying to put ourselves on the education map for the ISDs, and hopefully we are making inroads.
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have anything? I'll echo Councilmember Day. Yes, we had a great meeting with Dr. V. I walked away feeling really good about McLendon-Chisholm and where we sit on a lot of things. And with that, I was also, when we took the tour, I know the American Legion had some input along with the Marine Corps League on a ROTC program in Rockwell ISD, and Chief One Officer for Jimmy Barrientos is going to be one of the instructors there. And I helped put him in the Marine Corps. Didn't even realize it until he walked up and was like, you know, the surprise look. So with that, I appreciate everybody. It's 7:42 and we are adjourned.